But the bottom line is, I ain't shook. Cause if the right hook comes out, crazy motherfuckers like you get knocked out.
Hey, so this is Play the Controversy, and I'm Rudy.
And I'm William.
So on Play the Controversy, basically, we do what the name says, and we play with controversial subjects that have trended on social media today. We're going to tackle some Twitter drama, some discourse, I think is the term the kiddies use.
So when you say play the controversy, then emphasis on play, this is a tabletop role-playing centric podcast or just a gaming centric podcast? Maybe we should say it's more gaming than anything else, because I suppose
Yeah, this is more a gaming centric podcast. I won't say it's a tabletop. We're not going to use mechanics or rules or anything like that.
and the topics we're going to be covering are mostly going to be controversies from within the gaming sphere, right? Is that a good way? Is that correct? Like, we're going to be focusing on kind of like controversies from the world of gaming. Is
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, definitely. We're gonna focus on things that I personally see trending on my Twitter feed on the right side because I'm a masochist and like the home feed.
I I don't know if I installed a fucking blocker or what, but somehow I made the trending topics thing in my Twitter feed disappear. I've never felt happier. I've never felt more free. I have to like go into one of those other like tabs to see it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I have it still enabled, and I've never felt angrier. So, I guess I guess we'll find out how angry how angry I can get. I guess I don't know, but no. Basically, on this, we're gonna play with emphasis on the playful, playing around with some of these topics. They're going through the discourse this week. WOTC was trending with the hashtag. If you don't know WOTC, that's Wizards of the Coast. They make a game called Dungeons and Dragons, also known as Dragon Game.
Whoa! Slow down here, man. Slow
Okay.
down here. We're really into like esoteric, deep indie territory here, huh? Fucking Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I mean, if you don't know about Dungeons and Dragons, like I said, it's not my job to educate you. You know, it's not. Oh Lord, I apologize. Oh fuck, is that like a trademark phrase or something? Can I say Larry's phrase? But no, like, so Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop role playing game. You might arguably, although statistically I don't think it's arguable, it's the most popular tabletop role playing game. And
I would say absolutely. It's certainly like the most iconic, right? Like maybe it was exceeded by Pathfinder during that period when they fucked up fourth edition or something in terms of like sheer like player base. But my assumption now, I mean, whatever the case, it's definitely like the first thing your average human being who has not been completely warped by the world of like indie gaming versus trad gaming or whatever thinks of when you say role-playing game, or at least tabletop role-playing games. Like if you say RPG now, a lot of people probably think of fucking Final Fantasy or Skyrim or whatever. But
yeah, definitely. That's another point I wanted to bring up on this podcast. We'll probably be talking about just generalized gaming stuff, I guess, with a focus on tabletop RPGs. But if something from like Halo or whatever starts trending, if Master Chief has a bad publicity week because he, fucked the wrong alien or something, I don't know.
Master Chief in blackface, those high school blackface photos of Master Chief finally surfaced,
Right.
where he's still got the mask on, he's still got the helmet on, and he's put the blackface paint over the helmet.
It's that 5% tent, right? The fucking, but yeah, so something like that comes up, we'll still try to play around with it, talking some funny voices, even though Master Chief, as I understand it, is a voiceless protagonist. Dungeons and Dragons had a bad week this week, specifically Wizards of the Coast had maybe a pretty good week for marketing, actually, since they did the thing where they released some content. The content was controversial. and the content provoked a kind of fight. They created this people, we'll say. I guess these creatures that they created that were these are meant to be played by the players during the game as PCs. It would be part of the party, or adventurers, pretty much, since Dungeons and Dragons is about adventuring and going into dungeons and slaying things and doing all the things that we don't do when we play the game generally.
Okay, I know what D&D is. I know broadly what we're talking about, but I have no idea about the specifics of this controversy. So my understanding from what you've said is Wizards of the Coast put out a new playable character race. Am I with you so far?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. And this race is controversial.
Yeah, they're kind
Okay.
of controversial.
Okay, we're on the same wavelength. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So this race of people was put out for some of the latest Spelljammer work, which is the latest D&D campaign setting, which is basically the place where you have your little adventures in or whatever. I don't have a better way to say it, so I'll just say it like the guy in Saving Private Ryan says. It's an enslaved monkey race of minstrels who like to engage in mostly one-way flattery with elves.
Oh, hold on.
Now,
Hold on. This is not an exaggeration. Wizards of the Coast released a new playable race, and they're enslaved monkey minstrels.
yes.
They are monkeys.
Now, not all of them, I guess, are minstrels. So there is one image that's very choice that I will attach to this podcast.
Can you show it to me? Put it in the chat right now. I want to see this image. I need to see this image.
And here's the direct link on here.
Okay, let me take a look at this. Let me opening it up now. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, okay. Benefit of the doubt. What I'm looking at is a picture of an anthropomorphic monkey man.
Yeah.
He's got a stylish hat on, and he's playing I don't know, what is that, a mandolin? And he's dressed like like a Dungeons and Dragons bard.
Yeah. Yep.
And anything else I see is a function of my implicit pre-programmed racism, and not at all. I mean, it's just.
I mean, if you notice, there's 3 monkeys there, and not all of them are minstrels.
Yeah, there's a druid there and a rogue, and they're dressed just like the standard Dungeons and Dragons druid and the standard Dungeons and Dragons rogue. And neither of them evoke quite the same feeling in my heart as our bard. But so
also, if you notice, they have like wings.
They're the flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, yep. Which, as we know, are not problematic at all, and
No.
Yeah, so they're just monkeys, right?
They're
I mean, I don't know.
Anthropomorphic monkeys. Let's get more into the lore here, because it's easy to abstract this shit out, and I imagine that it would be very difficult for Wizards of the Coast to include any kind of anthropomorphic monkey race in Dungeons and Dragons without there being a controversy about how it was racist, right? Because there exists, let's not beat around the bush, a group of people for whom their livelihood depends upon finding things to be offended about, right? In media. There's a whole very lucrative vein of media criticism that's dependent upon finding something that's pretty benign, figuring out how to make it deeply offensive, and then getting pissed and getting clicks from being pissed, getting engagement from being pissed, selling ad revenue on the basis of being pissed. And to be clear, like, this is not strictly a like woke phenomenon or anything. That like there are plenty of people on the right who are making bank off the same phenomenon. So you can imagine that it would be probably completely impossible for Wizards of the Coast to release a playable anthropomorphic monkey race without someone saying something, right? Because the controversy is implicit in anthropomorphic monkey race. So what's the detail? So my question is, what's the specifics here? Like, what are the specifics of the lore that really have people up in arms about this?
So I'll just read a little section of the lore.
Yeah, please do.
Several hundred years ago, a wizard visited Yazir, the Hadazi homeworld, with a small fleet of spell-jamming ships. Under the wizard's direction, apprentices laid magic traps and captured dozens of Hadazis. The wizard fed the captives an experimental elixir that enlarged them and turned them into sapient bipedal beings. The elixir had the side effect of intensifying the Hadazi's panic response, making them more resilient when harmed.
Oh no.
That's not the whole deal, actually.
Okay.
So the other thing, I guess, these monkeys also appear to enjoy being slaves. And that was one point that was kind of brought up as a stickler. Let me just read a little bit more of the lore.
Yeah.
Kind
Please
of
do.
Hadazi were not philosophers. They gave little consideration to the ethics and morals of other races. They simply wanted to do good and happy work.
Oh my God, really?
But wait, there's more. They took great joy in the simplest of shipboard tasks and chores. So they were singing while they were in chains.
Lippity doo-dah.
So a lot of people got a little bit miffed about some of this stuff. This came out in the ways it usually does. So on social media, whenever there is some kind of controversy like this, you have the people who inevitably come out to say, I'm angry about this. And then you have the people who come out and say something that you actually had said earlier, this is just your personal hangups, trying to find something wrong with innocuous fantasy, et cetera, et cetera. So you had those people come out, and a big fight kind of, with stars and dust clouds and everything, some Tom and Jerry shit kind of emerged. Eventually, the fight got so loud that it got back to Wizards of the Coast, who totally developed this out of this totally wasn't some kind of scheme to get that fight to emerge and to get,
Of course not.
revenue and advertising clicks. That never crossed anybody's mind.
That
I don't even
never
know why I
happened.
said that. What the fuck am
A
I talking about?
manufactured
But
controversy
yeah,
to bring attention to your brand? No one would do that. Why would you do that? That wouldn't be worth it.
but eventually they made a statement about it, and they said, we failed our adventurers, I think was the title of the statement. And basically they said that they removed the content, and they did change the content to a much less controversial version of it, which I don't have on hand, but I think it's actually closer to the 1980s version of the same species. The controversy is over the newer description of the content, but these guys, I guess, were in the legacy 1980s version of Spelljammer. So,
well, everything was better in the 80s, I guess.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
That's when we were born. Rip.
Yeah.
A rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but that beauty. A rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beauty.
yeah. So, I mean, basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna roll up some characters, and by roll up, I mean I've created some prompts, and they are all going to be characters surrounding this controversy. You've got some elves, you've got some Hadazi monkey people, you got some people that might just be on a Spelljammer or whatever.
Oh, please, Lord, let me roll an elf. Please do not let me roll one of the monkey people.
Right. You have a D6 dice on you? I'll roll first.
Okay.
So that's a result of 4. So my character prompt is a Hadazi who's like, fuck with me.
Okay. All right. Let's see what I get. Rolling 5. How does he Spelljammer crewman who worked damn hard to become second in command? Oh, and you've got some setting prompts here too.
I do. So now we're gonna roll to basically see where we are. I'm not gonna describe anything. We're not gonna do the DM, intro thing where we describe in lavish detail all the whirrings of the machinery and all the other bullshit. So Spelljammer setting, from what I understand of it, is basically D&D in space, except it's ether space. It's like the ethereal area, so they don't have to get off the planet. They just have to cast a spell or something to get into this area. And but still, there's ships and stuff that are floating around, and many people doing spacey stuff. From what I understand, there's like giant hamsters and shit that are floating around there too. There's all kinds of creatures out there. A Spelljammer is just a ship that traverses this area, essentially.
Well, hold on a second. Is this all just a pretense for you to force me to engage in some kind of Firefly role playing?
Maybe.
Maybe because it certainly you couldn't have been like, boy, I know Will has an absolutely contemptuous disdain for Firefly, the television show that every other human being loves, and would not under any circumstances, if I told him, hey, let's do some Firefly themed role playing, would not under any circumstances participate in that. But
I mean, I don't know. I mean, come on, man. I mean, do you want to run this ship?
I do, yeah, actually.
Well, you can't.
God damn it. Okay. So you have to roll up a setting, right?
Yep, and I'll do the honor of that. I rolled a 4. That result is a ceremony where a crew member is being awarded a commendation.
Okay. So you're gonna frame the scene then. Is that how this works? You're gonna frame the scene?
Sure. Yeah, so we'll say we're on some kind of ship, Spelljammer. We'll say that somebody we know, another Hadazi, say, has been awarded like the equivalent of Employee of the Month. How does that sound?
I like it, but why don't we make it a non-Hadazi? Why don't we make it a different member of the crew?
How about a human?
Yeah, I like that.
There we go. So he's up there on the stage getting his award, or she, or whoever.
Does it look like the scene from Star Wars? That's the first thing that I think of whenever like I hear about an awards ceremony in science fiction.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we'll say it looks just like the scene in Star Wars, and we're in the audience, kind of applauding or whatever. Yeah, we're just talking to each other. We're right next to each other in the audience. How about that? So we'll frame it close so that we can.
That sounds good.
Get some interplay here. So once again, our characters. Yours is.
Mine is a Hadazi Spelljammer crewman who worked damn hard to become second in command.
Gotcha. And mine is a Hadazi who's like, fuck with me.
Yes.
Yep. So, alrighty. Fuck it. We'll do it live. I bet I could outwork him.
You bet you could, huh? You bet you could outwork him.
I bet.
Yeah?
Sir.
Why haven't you? I mean, I don't know. I'm standing here. You're standing next to me. He's on stage. He's getting an award. What are you doing? You're sticking.
Sir.
Yeah.
Permission to speak freely, sir.
Permission denied.
Okay, then. Well, I guess you don't want to hear what I have to say then.
Yeah, that's what permission denied means. Private.
I know what denied means.
Yeah?
I've been denied my whole life.
Oh, fuck. Here we go. Here we fucking go. Here we go.
I'm just
Listen,
saying,
no,
like, look
no,
at that
no,
guy.
no. Before you go off, look around. Look around. What do you see?
I don't know. It's the inside of a spaceship or something.
Yeah, you would see the inside of a spaceship. Look around. What do you see?
I don't know. There's a bunch of people here.
Yeah. Do you see anyone acting a fool?
No,
No, I don't
Maybe.
either. I don't either yet.
yet. Well, maybe I'm finna act a fool, man.
Maybe you
Think about that.
maybe you are about to act a fool. Should you?
Finna be. I don't know.
You, you what? Private, speak louder. You what?
I'm about to be acting a fool, sir.
You are about to be a fool. Not acting a. Think about that for a second. Think about that. Think about the distinction between acting a fool and being a fool.
Well, sir, I'm no philosopher. What's the distinction there?
From the outside, looking in, none. From the perspective of your commanding officer, none. You get me? You look up on that stage.
Yeah, I see. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just. Yeah, you probably work for it, but not as hard as some people work for it. I mean, I work pretty hard too. And I got look at him. He's a human. He's got boots on. He got 4 fucking things. I can reach with 4 hands. I reach with my feet. I reach with my hands and pull this lever with that one. Pull that like that. I can give it twice as much, 4 times as much, 6 times, 8 times as much as he can.
So, Private, what I hear you saying is you have a natural advantage, and you're still not on that stage accepting an award.
Oh, yeah, but it's because of. Oh, sir.
Private? Because of what?
Oh, permission to speak freely, sir.
Permission granted.
Oh, sir. It's because my name isn't.
Isn't what?
I don't know. Isn't like Lothlorien or some shit.
Private?
Sir?
What do you think my name is? Do you think my name is Lothlorien? Do you think I'm descended from a long line of elves or men? Do you think I can trace my lineage back to Gondor, Private?
Well, sir. No.
No. Private.
But, sir, permission to speak a little freer, sir?
Permission granted.
Well, sir. They've always got to have one, sir, if you know what I mean.
What? What? One what? No, please. Define. I need to know one what? One second in command?
Well, strictly speaking, sir, yeah.
Yeah, they do. They do. There's a hierarchy in place. There's a command structure in place. There does need to be someone on the deck filling my role. Yeah, there does. But that's not what you were going to say, is it, Private? It's not what you were going to say at all.
Oh, sir, I was just gonna opine about something that
Opine,
really,
Private?
sir, like I said, I ain't no philosopher.
Sounds like you have your opine in your mouth, Private. Opine, Private. You were just going to opine, and you wonder, right? Why I'm here and you're there.
A rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but that beauty. A rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beauty.
Rudy, so tell me, how are we going to close this thing out?
So to close things out, I figure we would take various tweets from the tweet storm that happened during the discourse with a capital D, and we'd do some high school debate club shit, read the tweet, and then each of us would take a side. So I'll read the first one here, I guess. And then we can choose sides and whatever.
Okay.
So the first tweet is by someone called Helios X01. And this is a reply to Wizards D&D, the official company that makes Dungeons and Dragons. This person said, only racists would have thought that content was offensive. You simply admit that you're racist. So I think the position here to take a side on would be that only racists would have thought that content was offensive.
So one of us is going to argue that only a racist would have thought this monkey slave race was offensive. And
Right.
the other person is going to take the side that no, in fact, you can believe the monkey slave race is offensive without yourself being a racist.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I'll take I'll take the only a racist would think that this monkey slave race is offensive position.
Okay, so I would take the opposite of that, which is, yeah, there's other stuff here that's problematic that, or well, there's, yeah.
All right. So my position essentially is that this is totally benign fantasy shit, right? That like I'm looking at this thing and I am seeing an anthropomorphic playable, I'm seeing a race of anthropomorphic animals, of which there are many, many within the D&D ecosystem, right? Like there are lizard people, there are cat people, there are every conceivable, there's vulture people, there are even vulture people, believe it or not. So why is there any inherent racism to a monkey person, right? Like a totally objective observer whose lenses of perception were not tainted by their deep internalized racism would see them and say, oh, those are just anthropomorphic monkey people, just like there are anthropomorphic lion people and lizard people and so on. So I think you have to be racist to even grok how this could be racist in a larger in the larger context of D&D, where anthropomorphic animal races are commonplace.
Okay, well, to that, something you said, if you take an objective lens to it, I think that's correct. Like if we were to get someone from another planet, say from or another plane, let's say from Faerun, and showed them this race and said, this, this, this is offensive to African Americans, they'd say, what's an African American? Because what's an American? I don't. But I think you have to look at it in the larger context of, because nothing's objective, right? So you have to look at it within our own frameworks and contexts that we as people, as players, not necessarily as characters or as people interacting with a fantasy world, interacting in a fantasy world. We have to look at it outside of the framework of that. And if you look at that, there are some things that are certainly reminiscent of aspects, unfortunate aspects of human culture, human society today. I mean, would you not agree? No, well, today.
Do we have monkey people in slavery today?
I may have misspoke when I said today, but in the recent modern era.
We have a history of enslaving anthropomorphic ape people.
Well, I see what you're trying to do there, but the comparison there, during slavery, a lot of the arguments for slavery were that the Negro was halfway between man and beast. These caricatures of, the monkeys and stuff like that, they come from things from a period, where there was phrenology, there was physiognomy, stuff like that. That was scientific racism. They come from an era of scientific racism where, evolution wasn't as understood and that sort of stuff. And, a lot of these things are certainly very reminiscent of that Wouldn't you agree that certainly they?
I don't think so. I don't agree. Okay. I mean, let's seed your point here. Like, I was gonna, I was gonna do the Ben Shapiro shit where
Oh
I
no,
like
no, do it.
just keep throwing like leading questions at you and evade. But no, let me try to give my position the honest, like let me try to engage honestly with for a second. And let me concede that America actually has a racial history that 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 no let me concede that a his there's an insidious history of there's an insidious racist history of comparing black people to monkeys, right? Let me concede
Okay,
that like
fair enough.
that there's a long history of racist rhetoric about how black people are essentially monkeys, right? Like
Sure,
that
sure.
I'll concede that point.
Okay.
Let me also concede the fact that much like this monkey race, African Americans were not only held in slavery, but for a long period, fucking basically bred like animals within the conditions of slavery, right? Against their will, treated like cattle, treated, and that the inclusion of that here.
I mean, there's also the Tuskegee experiment angle where they were literally pumped full of drugs and other stuff. So,
Right,
you could see where it could get a little.
And let me also concede the existence of minstrelsy and the association of
Sure.
blacks with the minstrel show and blackface and all of that. Let me concede America's fraught racial history. And let me also concede that if you look, there are some pretty striking parallels here.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But taking that all into account, I still hold that you would have to be a racist to look at this, at what Wizards of the Coast has presented here, and to say, and to have your mind immediately jump to the conclusion that this is racist, right? That this is an intentional act of racial stereotyping, or simply a passive, unintentional, but harmful act of racial stereotyping.
Now, would you say?
Mhm.
I'm just wondering about your thought process. Is that because you believe that everyone's a racist?
That would be the easy way to go about it, right? To say, oh, and I know this because I'm a racist.
Hey, so am I.
That's where my mind went right away, right?
Hey.
That would be, but that's a slam dunk. That's too easy. But what I would say instead, to try to like offer some kind of defense for this argument, is that the reflexive tendency to immediately frame anything that could be racist as racist, to use racism as your first interpretive framework before considering more benign possibilities. And when given the option between viewing it through a racialized lens and viewing it through a benign lens, if your knee-jerk impulse is to view it through the racial lens, then you, by definition, are a racist. And you are making a conscious or unconscious choice to continue to live in a society where racism is pervasive and foregrounded in our dialogue. How about that? Like, you're making, not only are you a racist, but you're making a choice to perpetuate racism and to have racism continue to be at the forefront of our discourse and at the forefront of our way of looking at the world. And you actually make it impossible for us to eradicate racism because you just keep reinforcing and foregrounding the psychology of racism. What would you say to that?
Well, I would quote the Google definition of racism. A racist is, because you said by definition you're a racist if you believe that these monkeys. Yeah, the Google definition is racist noun, a person who is prejudiced against or antagonistic towards people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. So what I would argue is that the people pointing out the faux pas or whatever this race, are they really being antagonistic towards black people when they do that, or are they trying to help them? Don't you think it's kind of an act where they're kind of trying to champion, to prevent harm before it's done? I mean, to prevent, the so-called microaggression or that type of thing. That's what people are trying to do. They're trying to champion the people. They're not trying to antagonize them, right?
They're trying to champion the victims of racism by creating an antagonistic racial dialogue. That's your argument?
Yeah, I mean, basically. Okay, so you caught me there. but it did. And right now I'm doing.
Come on, don't let me Ben Shapiro this shit. Come back and fucking bam, because I don't want people to be listening at home thinking, oh, he's
no, but like
he's a racist, and this is a racist podcast, and they're strong manning the racist argument.
But what I'm trying to say is it really racist? Does it make you a racist to point out problems, essentially social ills, that are being used, essentially for profit in a corporate put out work, in Dungeons and Dragons, it's sold, to a lot of people. Is it racist to point out those issues with it? And as a minority, possibly, is it racist to point those things out and say, hey, that makes me feel uncomfortable? Is that racist to do that? Does that make you antagonistic towards, maybe your own race? If you're doing shit like, it seems to me they're just pointing out the issues with it. They're pointing out something. They say, hey, that makes me uncomfortable, and it seems an unfortunate way to do it. Right? Is that racist to do that?
Well, let's take a utilitarian approach to this. What are the outcomes here? Because from my perspective, the outcome of starting that discourse is an increase in racial resentment, an increase in racial antagonism, and an increase, frankly, in racism, right? Like, by having these conversations again and again, you make a lot of people, regardless of their race, you force people for whom, like, race is a secondary, tertiary mode of viewing the world, or less than that. People for whom, like, race is not one of the prominent lenses that they apply when examining the world. You force them to view the world through a racial lens, right? And
yeah, but they already view the world through that lens because that's a necessary lens of living in the world. That's how people live in the world, right? They view it through the way things are in the world.
But is it a primary lens for most people?
I mean, for a lot of minorities, I think it is, because I think for a lot of minorities who are living in a hyper racialized, world, and that's because of pressures put on them through systemic and institutional power. I think a lot of those minorities see this all the time. They see this everywhere because it's done to them. This is done to them. This is frequent. It's pervasive. I think that's the argument there, right? Is this is a pervasive thing, and you can't help but see it there. And that doesn't make you a racist. That just makes you a victim of racism.
That's a valid argument. But let me reframe the conversation here. Imagine a tabletop group. Imagine some friends sitting at a table.
Okay.
And the weekly role-playing group in I don't know what's in Peoria, in Peoria. Okay. It's 3 white guys, 1 black guy. They get together every week and they play D&D. Okay. Now I'm going to pitch you 2 different scenarios. In one of these worlds, in both of these worlds, one of the guys and I don't know that it matters whether it's the white guy or the black guy, maybe it will to you, buys the new Spelljammer campaign setting and wants to run a campaign in it, complete with the How to Z as originally published.
Yep, that's fair.
And in the first world, this discourse has never happened. And they get down and they get together and they sit down at the table and play a session. In the second world, this discourse has happened and they're aware of it because they even have Twitter in Peoria, and they sit down to play a session using this campaign setting. In which of these two worlds do you think the black dude at the table has more fun, feels less uncomfortable, and feels less forced into a position of like racial defense and self-awareness?
Well, see, I think that's an unfair dichotomy, maybe.
Really?
Because, well, yeah,
because I
think
think this is what is happening in like homes across this country, that people are getting together and behaviors that they engaged in that were once not racialized for them are now, because they've been subjected to this discourse, fraught with all these racial connotations that they hadn't considered before, and that awareness of those racial connotations make these exchanges more uncomfortable for everyone involved. And as a result, people walk away from it and say, why was that so uncomfortable? And often draw racist conclusions as a result. Oh, like it was uncomfortable because, you know, I had to think about black people and I resent this. And now I'm going to be racist towards black people. I know that's really reductive, but you get what I'm saying, right? Which is that the
I understand what you
foregrounding of
mean.
this, I am confident that in that first scenario, under 99% of situations, those guys sit down and they play it exactly like they would any other campaign setting. And maybe there's a little bit of racism there. And maybe, as there is always like in an environment, there's maybe a little bit of racial jockeying or a little bit of racial joking. But all of that goes down smoothly and more comfortably. And in the second scenario, I think people sit at the table awkward. Maybe if they're a benign and progressive group, they feel like they have to have a conversation where they ask the black guy if he's comfortable. Are you comfortable with this? I understand there's been some conversation about this. Are you comfortable with it? I just want to know. We want to make sure you're comfortable at this table, you know? Or if they're like fucking, you know, dickheads or whatever, like, did you see this shit? You see, you're fine with this shit, right? Though that's fucking stupid, isn't it? I mean, I'm not asking you because I know it's fucking stupid, but that's fucking stupid, right? Can you fucking believe this? And in both of those situations, the black guy is in a really fucking awkward and shitty social situation, right?
I agree. And I agree with the premise that it's a bad situation, but I think it's an unfair dichotomy because I think marginalized races are always in a position like that. It just may be an unsaid position. So it just, you know, that latent tension is there already. So it's unfair really to say that that somehow signal boosting, you know, these problems with media. Like, it's unfair to say that is somehow increasing the racism factor. You know, that's just, it's an unfair dichotomy because people who are marginalized always experience that. They always have that internal thing. There's always that internal calculus. If I say something, am I gonna get beat, or am I, you know, maybe not beat, and these are your friends, but, you know, am I gonna provoke a reaction, or am I doing this, you know, the right way, or am I, you know? So it seems like, and to excuse it as basically, you know, like, well, you know, like, there might be a little racism there, but it's going to be cool and whatever. I mean, you know, that attitude seems like the attitude of, you know, frankly, an attitude that is oppressive, honestly. Like, because I mean, the idea of microaggressions is, you know, you can have an attack on your person, on yourself, and you don't have to hit someone. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be an aggression. It's something that you feel internally, but, you know, it's happened through these factors are mostly social or institutional that no one really controls. No one at that table is trying to make their friend feel uncomfortable. But their friend may be uncomfortable and may be whatever. It's just due to this, this environment. So I mean, I don't in an environment that exists for everyone because of institutional and systemic and social issues that are always going to exist. So I think it's an unfair dichotomy to paint it that way. Yeah.
So what you're saying then is that foregrounding these issues is increasing white discomfort, but not increasing the discomfort of minorities because they're already feeling that discomfort.
That's not not exactly. I mean, I'm sure it is increasing white discomfort. I mean, fair. But I think that for minorities, that discomfort, the way that discomfort may manifest, well, yeah, okay, you got me. You got me there. But no, I
mean, no, I mean, I and that might be a valid,
Yeah,
that
I mean,
might be a valid position, and somebody could say, well, actually, it's a good thing that we're increasing white discomfort about this issue, and it's a good thing that we're increasing white self-awareness of this issue, and in fact, there is no side effect of like making this more uncomfortable for people of color because it already was, right? Because
well,
the black guy at that hypothetical table in Peoria was always going to was always going to look at that anthropomorphic monkey slave race and say, well, and the white, whereas the white people at the table might be totally oblivious to it. And so, and I know I'm arguing your position here. And so as a result, like that discomfort becomes a means for white people to like kind of, have an experience for a moment of the discomfort, the pervasive discomfort of minority life in a racist country. And maybe white people will walk away, will draw a valuable and instructive lesson from that. And I will cede that point.
Sure.
But let me
Oh boy, are we still
let
on
me
this?
ask you this. Look around, because we've been trying this. We have been trying.
Who's we?
This. We, the culture at large,
The
have
royal
been engaged in the execution of that experiment. That experiment prefaced on exactly those grounds, prefaced on the idea that raising white racial self-awareness is a good thing that's going to lead to a more egalitarian, progressive, and less racist future.
Sure.
And let me even cede that might not be like a grifter ideology, but might actually be a totally sincere and well-intentioned ideological position. Let me ask you, man. And let me also see that maybe white people are deeply racist to their core. And all of this is true. All of this is true. But let me ask you, man, how has that experiment been working out? Do you feel that it's been making white people on the whole less racist? Do you feel that it's been making white people on the whole treat minorities with more respect and compassion on the whole? Or do you think that the end result has been one racially motivated hissy fit after another? And in fact, white people are more racially conscious than they have been in decades, and are way more racist, openly racist than they've been in decades too.
Well, I agree that racism is on the. I don't have like a racism data chart or whatever. I don't have access to the data. I don't have good data on this, but I think that there has been an increase in charged situations that surround race. I'll put it that way. Sure. I'm not going to speculate on the causes. I really don't have much of a comeback for that. And before Colette gets on us, for another interview or something, I think we should do some final thoughts.
Okay. Are we going to debate the other tweet? Or
Yes, yes. Just final thoughts on this tweet.
Oh, I mean, I don't think I have any. I think we.
We're good. Okay.
I think we beat that topic into the ground.
Okay. I got a classically trained Hadazi bard.
Okay, so the only one
character
left
profile.
then must be a human spelljammer crewman who is determined to not let any Hadazi outwork him.
Ha. All right, so I'll roll the setting prompt then. A badly understaffed spelljammer in abject disrepair. Really?
Sure. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Where are we? Are we in the engine room? What are we doing?
Sure, we're in the engine room. How about that? Something should blow up.
Okay.
All right, let's go. Okay, so I shift this with my left foot.
Well,
this other one in my
look at
right
this uppity
hand. Take my
motherfucker.
left foot, and then
Hey
my left hand.
boy, you
Just
know what
like-
you're doing there, boy?
Ah, yes, I'm repairing this engine.
Oh yeah, you're repairing that engine, huh?
Yes, it's just like Beethoven. It actually operates on a similar time signature to a great bard.
Listen, I don't know
legend.
no Beethoven, but I can hold a
Oh, yes.
fucking wrench. How many? What do you got? You got a wrench in one hand there?
Oh yes, I have a wrench in my left hand.
I can hold a wrench in
I've-
my left hand. Hey, boy, give me a wrench. Yeah, see, I can hold a wrench in my left hand. So what?
yes.
So what? You can hold a fucking wrench in your left hand. Big fucking deal.
And then
They
with
tell
my
me you guys were bred to work. And you're holding
Oh, yes,
one
we go
wrench
this way,
in your left hand.
that way.
Ooh, no.
Put it
no.
in.
Look
Put
at
your
me,
right
boy.
foot
I can
in.
hold a wrench. No, I can hold a wrench in my left hand. So you fucking bred to work my ass. Can you hold a wrench in your right hand?
Oh yes, and in fact, you put your right foot in. I'm holding it in my right foot, but
Oh, you can hold a
if you
wrench.
look, the
with
foot
your
is equivalent.
too. You can hold a wrench with. Okay, I can hold a wrench with my foot. I can hold it. No, you sit the fuck down. I can hold it.
Now-
I can. Look. No, I got it. Don't you dare fucking help me. I got it.
Now hold on, don't hurt
No,
yourself.
I got it. Look, I got it. I got it.
Now, I may be a doctor in in bardic science.
Oh,
but I
you're
have
a
no
doctor.
doctor. I am not a physician. I'm a doctor, not a physician. It's different.
Oh, it's different. It's different. Did you hear that, guys?
Yeah, it's my
You hear that, boys? It's different.
my doctorate is in bardic knowledge, specifically of the classics.
This
and-
boy here, he knows about
so.
two kinds of doctors. Oh no. Well, I'm holding two wrenches, okay? Okay? You know what? I can hold a third. I've got a hand free. I've got three wrenches. And I can use them too. I can use them. I got the one in my foot. I can get there's a
No,
there's
be
a
careful.
nut right over there. I'm gonna get the wrench around the nut with my foot. Well, I've got this one with my
We're not supposed to be that close to the reactor.
we're not supposed. We're not. Oh! Do you the safety doctor too, boy?
Oh no.
Oh.
I'm mostly trained in music, as I said.
Yeah, okay. Well, I could see that because right now, I have three wrenches, and you're just sitting here playing your instrument.
But friend, there's a rhythm to it. It's like instruments. You put your right foot in, you put your left
You
foot
hear
out,
that? There's a
you
rhythm.
put your
to
right
it.
hand in,
There's a rhythm.
and you
to
shake it all about. You see, we can do it quickly, we can do it efficiently, we can do it with a rhythm.
with a
The
rhythm.
rhythm of life. Everything operates on the rhythm of life.
Well, the rhythm of life. This fucking.
Yes.
Listen to this shit.
Although,
listen to
Actually, I should correct myself. Some things also operate on the rhythm of death or negative energy. That's necromancy outside of my field of specialization. But yes. So we put the right foot in.
Well,
left
you
foot
put
out.
your right
Was
foot
it the
in.
left
You
foot?
put your right foot in, but you
Uh-huh.
put your left foot out.
Oh, not-
well, my
not
left
in-
foot,
not into the
hey,
reactor.
Listen, my left foot, buddy, is all in, and
Not-
I can get this. I can get this. I can get.
You don't.
okay,
you
I'm
don't.
gonna
I
have to
would
sit down.
I'd
But
suggest against putting your left foot into the reactor, friend.
you suggest to get how am I gonna do work with my left foot? I understand that you are classically trained bard or whatever, and you're not you're only interested in working with 1 foot maximum at a time. But
Oh, well, that's not true.
down here in the fucking engine room, buddy, we need to use both feet all the time.
Yes, well then, if that's the case, we should get on the good foot, as a famous bard once said.
Listen, both of my feet are good feet.
Oh, well, it should be easy to get on the good foot then. I see you're standing on that wrench there pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get the rhythm. Let's get the energy in us. So you put your left foot in, put your right foot, left foot.
Let's get
right
some
foot,
fucking
right
work
hand.
done. Because I
Yes.
see, the way I look at it, I've got a wrench in one hand, a wrench in the other hand, a wrench in my left foot. I'm holding a wrench with my left foot. I'm holding a wrench with my right foot. And you're sitting here humming, boy.
Oh yeah. Well, any sort of labor, even manual labor, is like it's so warm up. You know, you have to warm up to do things. You have to play the scales, as it were.
Warm up?
Yes.
Warm up. We're in the fucking engine room, buddy. It's not going to get much warmer.
I feel that a little music may help us to warm up. What do you think?
Music.
Yes, I'm trained in at least 3 instruments. The harpsichord is my primary, but I can also
Boy,
play a mean guitar.
this here wrench is my instrument. And I'm only trained in 1, but I can use 4 at once.
Really?
Yeah.
That's quite impressive. Even I can't play 4 harpsichords at once, probably.
Probably.
Well, the real challenge, I guess, would be holding all 4 of them, and yeah.
Well, can you hold
Hmm.
1 wrench and do some fucking work?
Absolutely. Well, then, yeah, give me another wrench.
Do we have another wrench? So I guess I'm actually holding all of the wrenches.
Well, give me one of yours, friend.
No, I'm not going to give you one of my wrenches so that you can upstage me. I know that's what you classically trained musicians do, right? You want
Well,
me to give you one of my wrenches so that when the foreman comes around, you'll be like, Massa, he's only using 2 wrenches and I'm using 3. You can just lay him off. You can just fucking lay him off. You can just let his family starve.
oh, friend, I'm not trying to do that at all, actually.
No?
I was just
No,
suggesting.
you weren't bred to replace me? Because I feel like you
Oh,
were
bred is a
I
strong-
feel like you were grown in a fucking laboratory just to replace me, just to put me out of work, just to make my kids starve, just to make my wife leave me because maybe I drank a little too much or whatever. But that's your fault too. That's your fault too. If I didn't feel threatened, I wouldn't drink.
The drink, yes, it's something we all succumb to, I guess, but
Oh yeah, we all succumb to it. It's inevitable, right? It's not anyone's fault.
I'm not trying to judge, friend.
I
I'm just trying to
am.
do my happy work.
Oh, you're happy to work. Well, you know what? I'm not fucking
course.
happy to work. I don't want to fucking work. I don't want to work. And I used to be able to work half as hard before you came around. How about that? Huh? How
Well,
about
friend,
that?
if you
I didn't have to hold a fuck. Look, I'm holding a fucking wrench with my foot. Why am I holding a wrench with my foot? What do I have to prove?
you're not. That's why.
Uh,
you're stepping on a wrench.
No, I'm
friend.
holding it with. Look, I can.
Friend, you can no more hold that wrench with your foot than I can.
Oh yeah. You know what?
Hold
I
the-
need to take my boot off first. I will show you. I'm
okay.
taking my boot off, boy. I'm taking a. Okay. Gotta
Okay.
take off the sock. Okay.
You need help, friend?
No, I don't need help.
Hmm.
I've got it. I'm gonna pick up this wrench. What would you say that wrench weighs?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's hefty.
It's hefty. It's hefty. Okay, it's a hefty wrench.
Hefty, and you think you can lift it with your foot
I know I can lift it with my foot.
because you've done it before.
You don't have to have done something before to know you can do it.
I would say, friend, be careful and just don't drop that wrench into the reactor.
Don't drop the wrench into the reactor. Why would you assume that I'm going to drop the wrench into the reactor? Can you can pick up that wrench with your foot without dropping it into the reactor?
Yes, would you like to see?
Yes, I would like to see.
There it is.
Okay.
I can dangle it. I can dangle it too.
Now put it down.
Okay.
Now, why do you assume I can't pick up that wrench with my foot without dropping it into the reactor?
Well, friend, not to be
No, tell me. Be honest.
you don't have the right equipment, friend.
I don't have the right equipment. I've got my tool belt on, don't I?
You do. Do you have a copy, friend, of the OSHA workers manual?
Oh, I do. In fact, I think it's you know what? No, because I threw it into the reactor because I don't fucking need it. Because if I get hurt down here, it's my fault. And you know what? I know my job. I do my job. I'm not going to get hurt down here. Now I'm going to pick up this fucking wrench with my foot.
Hold on, friend. I should tell you something.
Yeah?
Throwing the OSHA manual into the reactor, friend.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That goes against the regulations on page 75 of the OSHA manual.
Oh, okay. Well, point them out to me. You can read.
Yes, friend.
Okay. Read them to me.
Well,
You can't, because I threw the manual in the reactor. And now we're on a level playing field. You can't read, I can't read. You can pick up a wrench with your foot, I can pick up a wrench with my foot.
be my guest.
All right. Okay.
Oh no! Be careful! You're gonna.
No,
kick
shut
it
up!
into
Shut
the
up!
reactor.
Shut up! I got it.
Oh no! Oh no! It went into the reactor. Oh.
Fucking
What do
told you so.
You did lift it, friend, but that reactor, it might become unstable now. We should evacuate.
Oh yeah.
We should
That
at
I
least
can
tell
beat
the
you to
foreman.
door.
Well, that friend, I'm not sure of, since the door is above us and I have wings and you don't.
Oh, I don't have wing. Oh, so I can't fly up and reach the door. That's what you're saying. You can fly up and reach the door, but I can't fly up and reach the door.
That's right.
A rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but that beauty a rich man's world. I have turned the soul.
So for the next one, this tweet is along a similar axis, but a little bit different. So Matt the Wizard 01 said, Wizards of the Coast claim they kept the racist implication for the Hadazee because otherwise, this is a quote, otherwise would be the same as claiming these prejudice never existed. The genre is called fantasy. It's meant to be unrealistic escapism from the bad things of this world, not a reminder of them. So to me, and I just
you really wanted to go for our nerves on this one, huh?
Yeah, this one to me reads as a keep the hate out of my fun type of deal. You know, it's like, hey, This is just fantasy. We're not talking about any real life shit. Keep it fantasy, shut up. And yeah, so I guess the position here we could take a pro or con stance on is should the hate be kept out of our fun? I guess, should real life elements stay out of fantasy and just leave it alone, right? Would you agree with that? Or
I think that's basically what's being argued here. Do you want me to take the hard position or do you want me to take the position
hard
that
posture.
I've been arguing for decades now, or do you want me to take the position I've been arguing against for decades now? I'm inclined to do the latter,
Just
but I
say
didn't
what
know if you would have more fun taking the
I don't
keep
know.
the
I
hate.
would have fun with both, I think. So
Okay, well, and I'll take the keep the hate out of my fun position because I don't think I've ever actually made before. I'm
keep the hate.
taking the like this is escapist fantasy.
Okay.
Why should we introduce these elements to escapist fantasy, these hateful elements to escapist fantasy? And you're
Yep.
taking the
Why not?
like, yeah, why
Yeah,
not?
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
So I mean, yeah, like fantasy, the thing about fantasy that makes it compelling, and the thing that makes a lot of imagination things and imaginative works and stuff compelling, is that it can be fucking anything, right? I mean, it can certainly, you can reference things from real life. Obviously, we are immersed in real life. Even when you're immersed in fantasy, you're also thinking about the things, from your real world daily stuff and all that shit. So why not cross the two? Why not spice it up?
Because it's going to make people miserable, right? Because isn't it more fun? Well, let me ask you this, because we occupy a world that's full of a lot of awful, miserable, hateful things, because
Yes, I
we
agree.
wake up every day occupying a shitty reality that we don't want to live in. We
Mhm.
wake up every day and we turn on the news and we are subjected to the most vile stuff imaginable. We go
Yeah.
outside and there's roadkill on the road. We go to the supermarket and we look in our pocket and there's not enough money to buy groceries, right? And we, because of inflation or whatever, and we have to put like that package of bacon back on the shelf. And we go to the office and we've been passed over for a promotion. And maybe
Yeah.
maybe we're black and we've been passed over for a promotion that went to a less qualified white coworker. And then we come home and we turn on the TV and Law and Order SVU is on and they're investigating a particularly graphic rape case. And
Mm.
and
Okay.
that's the entertainment. That's our escape from the drudgery and misery of our lives. And maybe fantasy has a unique capacity to imagine a world that doesn't have any of that. Maybe it's really fucking easy to imagine a world that has all of that stuff. And maybe fantasy is the one genre humankind has conceived of that has the power to nullify and remove some of those things that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, some of the uglier facets of our reality, and still somehow present us with a world that we can not believe exists, but feel for a moment like we could exist in, right? So why the fuck would you choose to live in a world with racist
Why?
monkeys and rape and shit?
Why? I'm going to quote someone who's much more adept at this than me. Even as the editor of Misery Tourism, you say it's fucking miserable. Yeah, that's fair. But I'm going to just quote Quentin Tarantino here, because it's fun, Jan. Because it's fun. I mean, that, like, literally, like, you can have fun with anything. You can play with anything. Play is about fundamentally taking things that are dangerous and making them safe.
Play is about taking things that are dangerous and making them safe.
Well, putting them in a sandbox so that you can play with them, so you can take them apart, so you can figure out how they.
What is this? What is this? 1932? You're going to give the kid a stick
Yes.
of dynamite and send them to the sandbox?
No, I mean,
Who cares if the toys are painted with lead paint?
You're not gonna give them the dynamite, because they can imagine the dynamite. That's the thing. They can imagine the fireworks. You can see the fireworks in your mind. It's not something that you have to. You don't need kid gloves when it's in your head. It's in your head. That in your head, it can't do any damage. It can't hurt you. No, I don't think so.
It can't?
No, I mean, there's mental illness and there's things of that nature. There are things that exist in your brain, but does that really come from the fantasy? Is it really fantasy's job especially, industrial paint by numbers, produced by committee fantasy like Wizards of the Coast or Dungeons and Dragons, which is arguable, but is it the job of our entertainment to reflect a higher, to elevate us, to create, to elevate us in that way, to project some higher, better version of our reality? Is it the job of fantasy to do that?
No, it's the job of fantasy to transport us to a place that we actually want to inhabit. It's the job
Yeah,
of
but
fantasy, and
well, I'm
this
gonna stop
isn't
you right there.
elevation.
Hold on.
Yeah.
What if I want to inhabit a world like that, just temporarily, just so I can play around? What if I want to inhabit a world that's dangerous, just as dangerous as our world, maybe shittier, for the purpose of playing in that world and not getting hurt? I mean, I gotta get hurt in the real world if I fuck with dynamite, right? What if I do it in a fantasy setting? I can blow shit up, I can blow myself up, and I don't die. So, I mean, that doesn't,
What
sorry I
if
interrupted.
what if that I've got two different tracks I can take here. I guess I'll take the harder track. What if that is hurting you? What
Okay.
if you were chipping away at your soul or at some intangible part of yourself, bit by bit, little by little, every time you're given the opportunity to choose between imagining a world that is free of racism, imagining a world that is elevated and that exists within the realm of our ideals, or where you have imagining a world without evil, or where evil can be defeated, where evil can be contained, and where you are in the active pursuit of like defeating that evil, and imagining a world where you're a serial rapist.
But
Like,
but
what if actually
mhm.
every time you're presented with that choice and you choose to imagine that you're a serial rapist instead of choosing to imagine that you're a paladin who's on a quest to slay a dragon and save a damsel in distress? What if you were actually doing harm, not to others, not to some hypothetical like snowflake or whatever who's going to witness your work and be so paralyzed and traumatized that they can't walk away, that they can't close the browser window, or that they can't ignore your behavior? But what if you're hurting yourself?
Well, I would say I would ask a counter question. They're both power fantasies, right? I mean, those are both fantasy. The dragon being slain by the paladin to save the damsel, and being a serial rapist. And right, those are both violent acts. Those are both violent men going out. And that dragon might have a family. He might have a daughter. He might fucking whatever. He raped someone. I mean, yeah. I mean, sure. I mean, they're not comparable acts morally, but I mean, those are both kind of morally gray things, right? I mean, well, not the rape is bad, but like the dragon, like slaying the dragon. Like, I mean, like I said, who's to say that that's a totally benign act? I mean, what if you're chipping away at some instinct? What if by doing following your version of the fantasy, you're chipping away at some instinct that says, well, we should topple evil where we find it. You know, what if that's building in you that instinct? I mean, is that a good beneficial instinct to have when as an instinct in a world that's like our own, that's full of evil people who do bad bad shit? Is it an instinct to say we should go slay all of them or whatever? I mean, is that not chipping away at something as well? I mean,
I mean, would the world, well, I mean, okay. But you're not going to find many fantasy scenarios, even those that are predicated on the idea that evil is identifiable and quantifiable and can be defeated, that imagine that process is going to be easy, right? So I can't imagine someone, well, I can't imagine someone, but I would counter that if the countervailing instinct that people get, if you're arguing that this is putting into other people a desire to struggle against evil in a world where evil presents a real profound challenge to overcome, I would say that fantasy doesn't make it seem like it would be an easy thing. And also that fantasy, well, I guess what you're actually saying though is that like fantasy is saying, well, this person is evil, you can kill them, right? Like goblins are
Right.
evil. And
Right.
so in the real world,
Yeah, I mean, the
why
real world, your
not
boss is a
engage
dragon
in
or whatever. You know, he's
vigilante
a multi.
justice against
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
To which I would say that my argument isn't that people are going to mix up fantasy and reality, right? It isn't that by pretending you're a serial rapist, you're going to become a serial rapist, or that the person who like goes out to slay a dragon in fantasy is going to then think that they could just pick up a weapon and defeat evil in the world in that way. It's that
Sure.
it's that you were choosing to dwell upon and soak in a particular world view that has implications that you can rationally understand, right? But that also has emotional and moral implications. That I guess what I'm saying is that you listen, this is not easy for me. I spent my whole life
I
arguing the
understand.
opposite of this. But what I'm saying is what if it's toxic and poisonous in a way that isn't rational? What if it's toxic and poisonous in a way, and not because it's going to compel you to go out and engage in evil behavior, but because it's going to induce you to spend more of your time stewing about and thinking about and fixating on the worst parts of reality, which then is going to, as a result, make you more depressed, make you a more miserable human being, and make you a human being where when you are given a scenario, when you're given an ambiguous scenario and have to make a split-second assessment about the nature of that scenario, you're more likely to see yourself as a serial rapist than the paladin who's slaying the dragon. And you're more likely to see a world full of evil that can't be overcome, that you're eternally complicit in, than to see a world where you can do good.
Wow.
And where that good can have a positive impact. How about that?
Wow. Priest, wow. That is probably the best movie trailer for Hope Punk that I've heard in a while.
We need to put a disclaimer on this. Like, don't, like, if you're one of our ideological enemies, you're not allowed to use our talking points.
And people quipping fucking pieces of this, like, hey, like, listen to what these guys say. Hey, remember the Misery Tourism guys? Okay.
Yeah,
but
here's
no.
the editor-in-chief of Misery Tourism talking about like the dangers of transgressive art.
yeah. Oh boy.
So
Like,
this is why they're closing up shop.
yeah, exactly. They've had a change of heart. They're Irish now. But this idea of the creeping negativity, or the intangible creep, I guess, is it's worrying to me, because it seems to assign fantasy a power that it doesn't have. Like, that fantasy can somehow, and art and literature and, you know, entertainment, things like that, it assigns art something which it doesn't have, which is the power to make a real change in someone's soul. I don't believe personally that art, at least not the consumption of art, can do that.
Do you think fantasy can do that?
No.
But then what is what is the substance from which the human soul is composed, if not fantasy?
Science fiction, but no, I, 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 I honestly, I mean, I don't know what the substance of the human soul is composed of. I have no idea of any real. I have no stats or no data on the human soul except that it weighs 21 grams. It's a movie or whatever. That's the only thing I know about it. I know it's the only property. So going with that property, I mean, that could be 21 grams of anything. That could be 21 grams of shit. It could be fucking, 21 grams of, I don't know, God's blood or whatever. It doesn't, it could be various things that compose. I don't think a human soul necessarily is composed of any one element, certainly no one tangible element. Fantasy is a thing designed by humans, designed by people, whether it's for a video game or for something like Dungeons and Dragons, where it's literally an imagination game where you tap into your imagination's reserves to make this world for yourself and other people. But I don't think that necessarily, like, to bring the soul into that seems to assign it an awful importance. A game.
Well, look,
why is it afforded that much of an importance? Why afford something that's just entertainment that much of a importance? We're talking about souls here, I mean.
Well, okay, we can talk about souls, or we can talk about like psychology. We can talk about the human soul, or we can talk about the human mind, or we can talk about the human conscience, or we can talk about any one of those abstractions, right? And when you think about any of those abstractions that we're so committed to, that we put so much like stock and importance in, what is the nature of those things? What are those things composed of? They're composed entirely of fantasy. They're composed entirely of imagination, of what we believe moral truth to be. Whether we believe in moral truth, what we believe moral truth to be, what we believe the nature of unseen reality to be, if there is unseen reality, what we believe, like what our ambitions are, what our goals are, what we would like to imagine that we are, what we would like, the way we would like to perceive ourselves and be perceived, the everything, all of that is fantasy.
Okay.
Right? All of it is the act of building these fantastical narratives around ourselves and around our purpose and around meaning.
Yeah.
And yes, you can stake out the nihilistic standpoint that all of those narratives are inherently meaningless and silly and delusional, right? But even that,
which I wouldn't take that position necessarily.
But even that's a narrative, right? Like all of these things, everything that we attach moral, spiritual, and psychological value to is a narrative.
Okay.
And so why would the act of choosing one narrative and stewing in one narrative and dwelling in one narrative ad nauseum not be psychologically, spiritually, and intellectually, emotionally impactful?
It may be, but I concede that it may be, but it depends on how the person engages with that narrative, right? I mean, if you believe it's harmful to you on some level, like let's say you're engaging with a fantasy world that's, I don't know, it's like Warhammer or something. So it's, the idea of grimdark, evil shit, everybody, like a battle where 1 million people fucking die on a planet or something like that. Let's say you're engaging, like those type of narratives, even a war narrative can have hope in it. Even there's tons of war narratives that have hope in them.
Are there a ton of war narratives, positive, hopeful war narratives that have racist monkey caricatures in them?
Well, let me try to think. I'll think on that one. I mean, actually, speaking of one of a fantasy narrative that does have kind of racist monkey characters in it, that's a hopeful narrative, the Wizard of Oz. Hey, we mentioned that earlier. So I mean, a hopeful narrative. I mean, you go in and smash the institution, and yeah, it's but there's also a witch with flying monkeys. So I don't. They're evil for some reason, but it's still overall. Wouldn't you agree that the Wizard of Oz is kind of a hopeful type
Oh
of
yeah,
narrative?
absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, and so in that narrative, you could be the evil monkey, or you could be the evil monkey master, or you could be the man behind the curtain, rolling all the dice, or you could be Dorothy. I mean,
Mhm.
right? Or you could be the Tin Man. I mean, so
Uh-huh.
you choose your the thing about role playing games that separates them is you choose your own part in the narrative, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to in just having that. I think the main argument here, which we might have gotten away from a little bit, is why have that stuff in fantasy at all? But that fails to take into account that in a fantasy where you can choose your role in it, that may not be the role that you're immersed in totally, because certainly, playing as Dorothy, in a hypothetical Wizard of Oz game is going to be a lot different from playing as, the Wicked Witch, right? Your immersion into certain things can be different, right? So I mean, those two are there. That's the beauty of perspective, right? I mean, so that's the argument I'd make.
So you're saying the presence of these racist monkey people in the fantasy world doesn't actually tell us anything about the moral position of that world, because the moral position is determined by the actions and affects of the characters in relation to the racist monkey people that occupy the world.
No. See, now you're sound biting me here. No. See, I'm saying that while it may determine something about the world, it determines nothing about how the player engages with the world.
Sure.
Because the players, and that's what I think was your argument, is that this is chipping away at something inside the player because of the way they immerse themselves in a character that has to be an evil monkey, or has to be whatever.
That's true. That's true. That's true. I'll concede that. But the foundational question, though, was why, if you can choose between occupying a fantastical universe that has deeply racist monkey caricatures and one that does not, why choose to exist in the one that does?
That is an interesting question. And I think that's a question that I can't necessarily answer, but I think it says something about each player. A player as an individual. Certain players, would be happy to exist in a hope punk universe where, good stuff happens, there's evil, but gets overcome, right?
Yeah.
Some players would exist in a kind of neutral gray universe where, sometimes there's evil and they act in more of a, I would say, an objective focus thing, like we have to go fight them because we're told to, or whatever. Some people might do that. I don't know. Some people might want to exist in a universe where the god of the universe is a rapist and he comes and rapes people at night or whatever. I don't know who would want it. I don't know who would want anything like that. That's fucking sick. But,
Yeah, right.
I mean, where there's a literal river of the god semen flowing through, a part of the world, and yeah. I mean, who would want a world like that? I mean, I don't think.
I feel like we've got on a tangent here.
I don't think anybody would want anything like that. That's just fucking sick. But like, it says something about the player, not about the content of the work. Again, which I don't think it's up to a company like Wizards of the Coast to be a curator of what people can experience from their work, really. I think that's
it is.
I mean, yes,
it is
them
to be
it is financially,
because they're
it is financially,
they're a corporation,
and yeah, sure, but
they want to.
But why do corporate acts have to be acts of social good? I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, why does it have to be?
I mean, because the alternative to that is corporate acts that are exclusively motivated by profit, which is the only other thing that corporations can take into account, right? Like, if
that's
you
fair.
remove the granted, like, it's still a profit motivated act for a
Sure.
corporation to engage in acts of social good, right? But if you remove even the selfish desire to engage in acts of social good on behalf of a corporation, then you just have the unrestrained profit motive left.
Fair, but I don't think that's necessarily true. Like I don't, I think it's true, but I don't think being neutral about, you know, whether or not it has to be a social good is something that's impossible to do. I mean, look at the movie industry. Movies can depict things like this. They can depict, you know, racism. You know, Django Unchained, a very hopeful movie, very upbeat movie, frankly, a comedy.
Arguably Tarantino's
Yeah.
most optimistic film.
Yeah, easily. And you know, it has scenes where slaves are whipped and slave people are shot to death, you know, people are beaten. It has a lot of negativity in that movie.
And
But
yet it ends, spoiler alert, on a note
Yeah.
of like black victory and like here. I mean,
Exactly.
Django is, and this isn't going out on a limb because it's mentioned right in the movie. Django is a kind of reworking of the Dragon Slayer narrative, because there's that moment in the film where Schultz tells Django the story of, I think it's Siegfried, right? Who goes and slays
Yeah.
the dragon and rescues the damsel in distress. And then Django goes to the plantation house and slays the dragon and rescues the damsel in distress, right? So
You're right.
arguably that is like a refashioning of high fantasy, of like mythic fantasy into into the like black captivity narrative experience, or however you want to put it. And
Yeah,
yeah,
like-
no, I know I'm arguing against my case, right? Because it's explicitly and obviously clear that you can have a hopeful narrative, that you can have a narrative where good triumphs, and that you can even have ultimately a morally uplifting and somewhat escapist narrative that includes these elements. And I just
Sure.
argued against my case. God damn it.
Well,
But actually, you know what? I'll double back and say, wait, well,
Okay.
actually, okay. You can have a narrative that you can have an epic fantasy narrative with a positive moral message and a positive moral outcome that happens to include racism as the dragon that's being slain, right?
yeah.
But two questions from that. Number one,
Mhm.
is that an escapist narrative anymore, right?
Mm.
Which the guy I'm supposed to be arguing for is arguing in favor of escapist fantasy.
That's
And
fair.
number two, and I shudder to even say this. This is what they would say, right? Can your average group of players be trusted to craft that kind of hopeful narrative given these components? Or are they going to make ape noises and while trying to rap?
Trying to rap or rape.
Rap and rape, right?
Rap and
Are they
rape.
gonna
Yep.
throw banana peels around and like recite Snoop Dogg lyrics and broadly like be as racist as humanly possible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to answer the first question, no. I mean, it's not an escapist narrative, I guess. I mean, although you could argue that everything is escapist in the sense it's in the mind. To answer the second question, no. But should they be? I mean, when you say trusted, I mean, is it up to the company to gatekeep that experience? I mean, I guess if you want to say, if you're a strictly like, you know, rules is written, or not rules is written. What am I trying to think of here? You know, system does matter or whatever type of thing. Like you believe the game should create the experience, but D&D has never really been about that. It's a toolkit to do other things or to do whatever you want with, basically.
You're right that the company can't curate that experience, right? You're right. but should the company be complicit in that experience?
No, and they're not.
They're not, even by, but giving people the tools and the incitement to make it so much easier to run a really racist campaign is not complicity.
I mean, yeah, I mean, on some level, yes, but they didn't.
Don't concede the point, man.
But I mean, they didn't enslave people, and they didn't enslave the monkeys. I don't know what to say here, man.
I mean, they did. The monkeys
they
didn't
did.
exist, and then
Uh,
they created them to be a slave race. I mean, they did
Yes,
enslave the monkeys.
they did literally enslave the monkeys.
At least
But
within the realm of the imaginary, they enslaved
yeah,
the monkeys.
the realms of the unreal. I, yeah, okay, but I don't think it's necessarily up to the company to essentially game every case of how their material be used. If racist gonna racist, then they're gonna do it, right? I mean, and that again, it's a function of the group, sort of.
But does that mean that okay, so should, I don't know, what's a major record label?
Death Row.
Okay. Should Death Row Records, well, but you're dealing with one that's like one of the most like ethically dubious record labels.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
let's say it. Okay.
Griselda
So,
then.
huh?
Griselda.
Griselda. Okay. Should Griselda Records sign oh my god, I've forgotten his name.
Varg Vikernes.
Sure, Varg. I was going to mention Johnny Rebel. Although Johnny Rebel
he's
is
dead.
isn't
I
he?
think, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Varg. Should Griselda sign Varg Vikernes, knowing that he's an unrepentant racist, who burned down churches, who stabbed his bandmate, and who gets on Twitter every day and says a bunch of racist shit? Should they sign him then? Because after all, racists are going to listen to and consume racist content anyway. They're going to find him. So why not profit?
That's fair. I mean, my selfish answer is yes, because I want to hear the West Side Gun Brism crossover. But I mean,
I do too. You know
another...
what? I do too. I can't pretend I don't. Why are we? Yeah. What are we arguing about?
What are we? Yeah, what the fuck? Honestly, I'll leave it at that. I have no other answer for that. Yes, Griselda Records should sign Varg Vikernes. Yes.
You know what? I agree with you.
There we go. Bam, done.
So yeah, okay. Actually, Rudy, we've had a long conversation about this shit. We've kind of tried to nail down the controversy. We've role played some scenarios. We've debated the core moral issues at hand.
Yes.
How do you ultimately feel about this? Like at the end of the day, how do you feel about this controversy?
Honestly, personally, this is going to be a controversial opinion. I like Spelljammer.
That is a controversial opinion. Well, it was nice talking to you.
Hey.
No, sorry.
Yeah, I like the monkey race, honestly. I think there should be outright blaxploitation in Dungeons and Dragons. I'll just say it right now. I think there should be a Django Unchained Spelljammer adventure where, racist monkey characters go on an adventure and shoot the elven slave master or whatever. I think that should be in the game. That's literally what I think. I can't nuance it anymore. Yeah. I feel like this controversy has certainly made Wizards some money, because that's what happens every time the two groups fight each other. After the battle, the necromancer comes and raises all the corpses, and they now have 13,000, 15,000, 100,000 strong necro army, basically, because there's this big battle there. This is what happens. They're just vultures. They just wait for things like this to happen, and they engineer this, right? Because the very like that weekend, they made a statement about it. It was like, okay, we're sorry, and it was a half-hearted,
ready to go.
They had it ready to go. It was like a half-hearted thing. This race was not only engineered in some, Haddazee home planet lab. This race was engineered by Wizards of the Coast marketing people.
Yeah.
And in a boardroom somewhere. They said, listen, like, we know these people get upset about this shit and we just want to go and make some money. So how do we do that? And so they hit the button on the algorithm they have to, to look up, what's most controversial. It came back, okay, black shit. Okay. So who knows some black issues? Somebody raises their hand, slavery. And he said, okay. And then so he said, well, how can we piss people off the most? They said, well, black people don't like being compared to monkeys, right? I mean, so, and then somebody, and then, whoever is on the head of the board, the CEO or whatever, was like, yeah, no, that's right. That's a good fucking point. Hey, Johnson, you're a black man. Hey, hey, you're now the head of this project to make this race of monkey. I don't know who made it, honestly, but the fact is, it was made by committee. It was drafted to create outrage. This is a race that was designed, bred in a lab,
Bred in a lab
to create fucking outrage. And I think, while I would say that's a toxic design philosophy and it's a toxic corporate philosophy, frankly, I think that's the reality of the world we're living in, where everything's algorithmic, everything is that. I don't think you can get around that. I think that'll be with us for some time. So, and that's all my thoughts.
It
Sorry,
better be, because this
it's gonna be.
podcast is contingent. The life of this podcast is contingent on that being the case. On living in a
Exactly.
world of algorithmically generated controversy.
Correct.